Hi, and welcome to another Breakthrough Leadership video. We're continuing our interview series with John Nimmo, owner and managing broker of the Southern Real Estate Group and owner of Southern Development Group, a training and teaching organization. Powerful, the things that John's doing in that arena. I want you to go and check out John at, what is it, Southern Development? What's the training?
It's leadershiplived.com.
Leadershiplived.com. You'll enjoy John, and I know you've enjoyed him in these videos that we've been shooting today. You know, we've been on a complex discovery here, John, today. I've called it the power of discovery, how asking the right questions will lead to breakthrough.
Yes.
And you've given us some amazing perspective that's counterintuitive about asking questions and about really vesting ourselves in the relationships that not only create success, but change who we are while we're changing other people's lives as well.
Yeah, you can't, if it's true that people do business with whom they know, like, and trust. John Maxwell does it great in his irrefutable laws, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, where he says it's the law of magnetism. Who people are is who they attract. And business people who are successful attract business people. And that's because there's a camaraderie there of, I know you, I like you, and I trust you.
Cool.
And that's based on something other than logic.
Well, I mean, that's just a gift, right? We're just born with it, right? That's what I hear so much, John. In all the discussions I have, it's like, well, yeah, but Greg, I'm not you. I'm not like you. I'm not like John. I mean, he's just natural. He's a natural. Is one of our joke. We joke about this kind of stuff all the time. But we've become natural through a lot of pain, a lot of study, a lot of work, a lot of failure, right? I mean, so John, talk to me about this idea that we struggle with. You train leaders. I mean, don't they all just kind of think, oh, that's not the way I am?
No, the truth is, and I'll look at the camera when I say this.
Absolutely.
You can learn this skill, and you can be a leader. And it's a science. It's not an art. We are not born with it. There are no natural born leaders. It's a science that people learn. People skills are a science, Greg, that we learn. We're not, you could say, well, he's a great person. He doesn't know a stranger, right? That doesn't mean that relationship is a great relationship. I mean, I have great friends, and it's not necessarily a good business relationship. It's dominated by the other person. But it comes back to our directing, or are we discovering conversation a little bit? So can we talk about, let me, for the sake of time, let's talk about some things that we learned and some things we haven't learned. Is that fair?
That's awesome.
So for all of you out here, let's think about something. There are 4 methods of conversation: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Greg, is that fair to say?
Sounds right to me.
Do we all agree?
Yeah.
I mean, can we agree with that? So how much time have we been, in our lifetimes, how much time have we spent learning to read, learning to write, or write well, and learning to speak? I mean, we have writing classes in college. We have speech classes in college, right? We hopefully, most of us learn to read at a pretty young age. Some are more adept than others, let's say. Let me ask the question, how much time have we spent learning to listen?
Well, I can guarantee you that they're not teaching listening, because I have grandkids and they cannot listen. So
we've learned 3 skills pretty well.
Yeah.
As business people, we learn those things. The question is in listening is probably in business, in my opinion, it's the most important skill that we can learn. It's the determinant as to whether you're going to succeed or whether you're not going to succeed, is how we listen.
I agree.
Powerful,
John.
So when you ask questions, if you don't listen to the answers with empathy and with your heart, then we're very superficial. And that takes me back to the genuineness and the strategic.
The know, like, and trust.
The know, like, and trust.
I mean, we've all been there where there's people in our lives that they're asking us a question. You know, I hate to use this example. There may be car dealers watching us, but there's nothing worse than being in that environment where you know they're asking you a pre-scripted series of questions that are obvious.
Yeah.
And it's very,
it's
it's
disingenuous,
irritating, right? It's disingenuous. And now you're talking about a communication skill that's not geared toward asking the obvious question to lead them. You're talking about an indirect leadership skill that really is about asking questions strategically.
And it's a skill that, if you learn, can decrease your turnover with your staff.
Wow.
It can empower your staff.
Now you're talking about something.
It can create money in just less turnover. It's a very trainable skill as a leader, even with your own people. When you start asking questions and learning about others, you learn their personality types. You learn how to speak with those people on their level to gain congruency, gain momentum with your own staff, and they buy into what your mission statement is so much better.
I was just thinking of an example where somebody recently asked me, but can you help me write our human resources policies? Can you help? Because we need better policies, because we're not getting the results we want from our people. Our team, we need to better instruct. And I wanted to laugh because I've been there, because I've been there where I thought I could just dictate a teamwork element, when in reality, writing a new policy doesn't do anything to communicate. It's a dictating, or as you said, directing versus discovering.
Yeah, and we have the power as leaders to establish a culture within our companies that's positive, profitable, beneficial, easier to manage. And I would tell you today that you can do it through asking questions.
That's awesome.
Magic questions.
Now, John, I don't want to intimate that it's not important to have good policies. Don't get me wrong on that.
No, not at all.
But the point is, often as a trade-off from feeling people have to vest themselves deeper into those relationships, they prefer to just dictate it. I mean, you've known the person that you talk to them on the phone. Maybe it's a customer, a supplier, a vendor, whatever. You talk to them on the phone and everything's cool, but then they can send you a fax that's scathing, or an email. They can. Have you seen people who just come out of their shoes on email, but then you talk to them in person and oh no, you took that wrong. That's not what I meant. What do you think? Is that just another example of how we are unable to communicate because we're unable or unwilling, or we haven't learned? I guess that's the right way to say it. We haven't learned how to really communicate by listening, asking the right questions.
Well, if we ask the right questions, and we ask more questions, perhaps we jump to conclusions too quickly. And I'm certainly guilty. I'm certainly guilty of doing that at times.
We all are.
And I've been through several failures in several businesses personally, several failures in business. And, I love John Maxwell's, sometimes we win, sometimes we learn, we never lose. Yeah. And, the traits of a leader is when we get knocked down, we always get back up. So we're always looking for things to make success easier, more palatable, right? And when we're on the path of asking questions to our clients, our customers, and our staff, we're on the road to success. Yeah. We're on the road to success because their perception is we care.
Yeah, that's powerful. And it's not just perception. You can't do this unless you really care.
Oh, yeah.
John, I really want to be sure that we leave this video giving people some traction items, some items that they can walk away and know that they have an implementable skill that they're learning, even through this short time we're able to share together. Yeah. Because the reality is we make this stuff too hard. And sometimes, I'm a proponent of this idea that knowledge, if it doesn't become action, it's meaningless to us, right? We don't want just more discontent. Oh, that's my problem. It's another problem out there. No, we want to give them some traction. Okay?
Sure, okay.
And you and I talked earlier about 3 areas that I think people could walk away from this video with some real traction. And the 3 areas were feel versus think, indirect leadership, and how to become a discoverer.
Okay.
So talk to me about feel versus think, John, the number one traction item.
So when we really don't get into the details of asking the correct questions, in business, we may always ask, well, what do you think about that? And what we're asking for is a logical conclusion. We're directing those questions to the part of the brain that thinks logically. And we all know that buying decisions are not made out of logic. They're made out of emotion. So if we want to really tap into the emotions, we need to focus on, Greg, this has been a great conversation. How do you feel about it today? And so I'm tapping into a different part of your brain that is leading people to make a decision, because people make decisions based on emotions, how they feel. Know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
We hear it in all the manuals. If you're in business at all and you've read anything, we know that people do business with whom they know, like, and trust.
Yeah, right.
Is that logical, or is it a feeling?
Yeah, I mean, have you ever been in a situation, John, where somebody asks you that "what do you think" question? Oh, all the logical points are there.
Exactly.
Yep, I think you drew the right conclusions. But nope, I'm never going to do business with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas the "what do you feel"? Well, what I feel is that I don't trust you. I may not say that out loud, but the reality is you're tapping into, to get the right answer, you're really tapping into.
We're using a thermometer to check their temperature.
Yeah. It has to do with feel versus
It has
think.
to be with feel. Absolutely.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, let's move on. Second item was indirect leadership. Allowing others to conclude with their own answers through asking great questions. Indirect leadership, I love the way you phrased that.
Indirect leadership is a method of taking people down a path that you want to go on, but it allows people to draw their own conclusions so that they get to the result with you and not in opposition.
Yeah, you're not trying to
you.
dominate them and force or superimpose your conclusion on them, which is what we tend to do, right?
We all tend
we're great arguers,
yeah.
we're great at making our point,
Yeah,
and we think if we just say it right, they would get it, right? I've taught myself there, if I could just say this right, they'd get it.
We are so focused on what we have to say and being important that we forget that everything, and very quickly, I know we're running out of time, but we've been in a room where we've been introduced to 4 people, and 3 seconds later, you can't remember one of their names. Why is that? And that's because we're so focused on what we have to say and our own validation versus validating the other people in the room whose most important thing in their life is their name.
You're right. And it's so obvious, isn't it? We make this stuff so hard. We make it so hard.
We do make
Okay, so we're giving them traction here. Indirect leadership has to do with, if I understood you right, has to do with allowing people to reach the same conclusion or to reach a conclusion about something that you're leading them to because you're asking them questions.
Sure. And the other thing is we're validating them by allowing them to speak, which is like allowing them to breathe.
That's amazing. So we got feel versus think, and we've got this concept of the conversation being indirect leadership.
Correct.
Okay. And then the third point was how to become a discoverer.
All right.
I love the terminology you use on this, but how to become a discoverer, John. This is how we're going to see ourselves, right?
It's how we see ourselves personally, in business, and in life. We can set out on a path that we create. We can dictate the conversations, and we can continue to fail over and over and over, as you and I both experience. We both experienced that. Or we can set out on a path of discovery, and the discovery part is discovering what our natural giftedness is, and applying that giftedness to the circumstances or the businesses and in our personal relationships that we're in at the moment. So if we choose the path of discovery, there's no way to discover anything without asking questions.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you know what? If you really think about the practical nature of that, it's the same tiered effect of every form of leadership. We got to discover inside ourselves first.
Exactly.
We have to discover in the relationships around us and in our team. How could we use their giftedness if we're not discovering?
Absolutely.
And then we have to discover out into the marketplace, out into the relationships we're building.
And let me take a moment to apply a biblical principle.
Great.
In the 135 questions or so that Jesus asked in the New Testament, that we referred to way on early, right? Did he already know the answers?
Great point. That's a great point.
Why was he asking the questions?
So we would think about it.
So we would think about it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So you may already know the answer, and you just want to give somebody the answer to the question that you're trying to jump through the hoops, right? You're trying to get to the finish line faster, and not respecting the process won't let you explore these 3 traction items, right? Feel versus think, indirect leadership, I love this, and becoming a discoverer. You know, we think that you can become the leader you were created to be. That's the entire concept behind breakthrough leadership. Finding and discovering the simple, trainable, repeatable, universal, biblical truths that can help you become the leader you were created to be. How you can live with passion. It's exciting to share these thoughts.
And peace.
Yeah, and it's just an amazing process. Yeah. And don't you find that this process of communication and asking questions can literally become fun?
Oh,
I mean, it's fun. It's fun, you guys. Get out there and experiment with it. Ask some deliberate questions. Fail if you need to. Feel silly and laugh at yourself. But this is the path to breakthrough. I hope you'll discover the path to discovery and find your breakthrough. This is Greg Yates and John Nimmo. Thanks for joining us today on this powerful discussion of asking the right questions. Thanks for joining us in this Breakthrough Leadership video.